Pascal will be introducing the candidates for sheriff in a few minutes. In the meantime, I'd like to do a shout out to a couple.
My name is Pascal, I'm Ubinet's editor, and I will be tonight's moderator. So 2 things for you. First, please put your phones on vibrate, because you all have fascinating ringtones, but you know. And second, let's bring up the candidates. John Foster, Shannon Moon, Bill Smothers, please take your seats. And while the candidates get settled, let me tell you how this is going to work. We want to have as many questions as possible, so we're going to keep the answers pretty short. So the candidates will start with 2 minutes of opening statements where they can tell us what they want, where they will be totally on message, and then we will start questions. The first round of questions is going to come from me. I'm the one who wrote the questions. Nobody knows what they are. And no, I did not share them with anybody because that's the kind of person I am. And let's get something out of the way right away. That is for you, the audience. How many people of you have ever voted solely for a candidate because of their sexual orientation? Seeing none, I can say that I would do the same, so I hope that clarifies a few rumors around here. The candidates have drawn numbers, and that is their seating order, and that's also going to be the order in which they're going to start with the opening statements and then the questions, and we will of course rotate. If you have a question for the candidates, there are index cards around. I already have a significant number of them, but please feel free, write your questions down, and there will be the very efficient runners from the Democratic Central Committee will bring them to me, and we will get to as many questions as we can. And now,
I am Shannon Moon, and I'm running to be your sheriff because I genuinely care about our community and believe that we deserve the absolute best in public safety services. I will leverage my 27-year career in making sure that what I say is what we were going to be doing, and I will definitely deliver that tonight. As a 27-year veteran at the Sheriff's Office, my vision is to restore the trust and partnership with our community. I am the only candidate qualified to be transformational and operational on day one. I look forward to listening to the community. I have worked and lived in this community my entire life, and I look forward to the questions that you have for us tonight, so thank you.
Hi, I'm John Foster, and I want to be your sheriff in Nevada County. What I'd like to talk about briefly is my family, my career, and my vision for the Sheriff's Office. A lot of people go, who is John Foster? Well, I've been married to Eileen for 33 years. We have 3 boys. Our oldest boy works for Nevada City after graduating with a degree in communications. He works for the Nevada City Police Department. Our youngest son is in the engineer, University of Arizona. He's a Navy ROTC. And our middle son is in the Navy, graduate from the Naval Academy. So we're quite proud that we have 2 of our sons serving our country and one in law enforcement. As far as the community, I've always been very engaged in the community. I've always been involved with the nonprofit boards, such as A New Day. I'm currently a member of A New Day. I'm also a member of the YMCA Advisory Council. I'm a member of the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee for Sierra College. I'm also a blue and gold officer for the United States Naval Academy. I have a master's degree in public administration from University of San Francisco, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Sacramento State University. I'm a graduate of the FBI Executive Institute, and I hold a executive certificate from POST, which is the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training. As far as my career, I started off in Palo Alto. I rose through the ranks, did a variety of assignments from SWAT team leader to sergeant to watch commander to being a lieutenant in charge of personnel and training, which was basically being in charge of 175 people for risk management, hiring, training. And then I went to Corvallis, Oregon, where I was the number 2 position.
Time.
Good evening. My name is Bill Smithers. I'm also running for sheriff in Nevada County. I'm going to change it up a little bit. Most of you know me. I know a lot of people in this room. I've lived up here all my life, born and raised. 24 plus years in law enforcement in Nevada County. And I'd like to thank the Nevada County Democratic Party for hosting this event tonight, and it's great to see the engagement of the community that's coming out here because this is such an important position within our community. When it comes to Nevada County, I cannot think of a better place to live or raise a family. Yet, having grown up here, the face of Nevada County has changed drastically in the recent years. Some of the changes have been good. Most of them, as far as law enforcement, the perspective of law enforcement, have been bad, and it's discouraging. The Sheriff's Office and surrounding law enforcement agencies have seen an increase in calls for service, drug activity, the increase of our homeless population in our community is growing tremendously on a daily basis. Public safety is my major concern, and I know many of you have that same concern, if not all of you. This is a beautiful community, and I want to keep our neighborhoods safe from the criminal activity that's taken place up here. As sheriff, I will bring a proactive approach to dealing with the crime in the community, not only to keep you safe, but to reduce the recidivism that is very prevalent in our community. I will work diligently with the surrounding law enforcement agencies to combine our resources and efforts to address the major issues that are affecting the quality of life in Nevada County. As important as interagency law enforcement relationships are, my 24 years in law enforcement has taught me one thing. Our biggest and most important resource to us is the community, the members of this community. And it is imperative that we
Thank you for the introduction, and you know that you have your closing statements, and I hope that you get to make all your points. So now let's go to the first round of questions. 1 minute to answer the questions, and there will be individual questions for each one of you. So in the order of appearance, Shannon, the first question is for you. Your tagline on your website says integrity, independence, innovation. Yet you are married to somebody in probation, and apparently you met on the job. So is that the kind of transparency and integrity that you're looking for?
Way to start the evening with a zinger. I'm going to step off the stage because the last time I was up there, I felt like I was going to fall. I don't want to fall on this question. So the question is about my relationship with my wife. My wife is here tonight. I can tell you I love her very much. I can tell you that I love the family in which she has allowed me to be a parent, which we have some of our family here tonight. I did meet my wife at work. The reality of that is I was very transparent with our organization and made sure that they understood that we were having a relationship, and there has been no conflict because of that relationship. So I will say, I do have integrity. Integrity to me means choosing what is right over what is fast, fun, and easy. Choosing to make a difference in someone's life based off of what you believe to be is right. And those are the taglines that are very important to me and how I was raised in this community. As far as whether or not my adornment and my love to my wife is in question, I can absolutely guarantee you it is not. So thank you.
John, you retired from Grass Valley, and there have been persistent rumors about why you retired. Would you care to address those, and can you confirm or deny that you retired with a medical condition?
No, I did not retire with a medical condition. I did put in a claim for a medical issue after retirement, but I did not. I retired for my son. My son has brain cancer, and he needed me, and I needed to be a father. I always told my employees, this is what I told my employees, family first. I'm family first. And you know what? He got to a position of health of being better, and people asked me to put in to be sheriff, and I wanted to be sheriff, and I said, you know what? My son's in a position that I can go back and serve the community, and my health is fantastic.
Bill, you are a lieutenant with the sheriff's office.
Yes.
You didn't make it to captain. So what makes you think that you're qualified to be sheriff?
So I'm currently the executive lieutenant at the Nevada County Sheriff's Office. I promoted to the position of lieutenant in 2012. A lot of people within the agency realized, or I was very vocal, that I was thinking about retiring in December of last year. I went through something in 2016 that I hope nobody ever has to go through, but I lost both of my parents 9 days apart. So when that happened, it was difficult for me, and my family stood behind me. And I had to get all of their estate in order, remodel their house, and take care of the family business. My wife, and I could not open another door before I closed once. Yes, I did put in for captain, and I did not get the last position. That was my first time putting in for captain, but I was going to retire at the end of the year. Thank you.
So this is a question for everybody. To the extent that it is important, how will you encourage or promote greater police community familiarity and collaboration? And we're going to start with John.
I would take the exact model that I used when I was Grass Valley Police Chief. Collaboration, working with the community, working with your nonprofits. And I'll give you the example, and it's probably going to come up on homeless, is that getting together with the stakeholders and coming up with creative, collaborative solutions to resolve our long-term issues with our people without homes. So as far as the relationship with other law enforcement, that has been exceptional, and I took the lead by creating a monthly meeting with all the department heads, the sheriffs, the police chiefs, highway patrol, meeting on a monthly basis, and so also working with training. Training is also one that you work with collaboration to work with your partners. Thank you.
So that's one of the big things. I was actually the sergeant of the Narcotics Task Force for Nevada County Sheriff's Office, and one of the things that I did is I supervised the Grass Valley Police Officer and the Nevada City Police Officer. We trained regularly with them. They attended our training. I think it's very important that our community, and I had passed this on to all of the Police Officers Association, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Sheriff's Management Association, when I spoke to them, that what I want to do is I want to bring this community together, I want to bring our department together, and I believe it starts at the top of the department with morale and everything else and works its way down. You can't ask the new cadet, you can't ask the 1-year deputy or a 5-year deputy to change that morale. The morale goes a long way. So the partnership that I want with the nonprofit organizations within the community that are very valuable, and other law enforcement agencies that are very valuable, I want to work closely with them. I want to train with them. I want them to know us, and I want to know them. I want us to know our community and be more engaged with our community on a daily basis.
Great. My vision for our Sheriff's Office is to restore the trust and partnership with our Sheriff's Office and the community that we serve. We do that based off of how we engage, how we discuss tactics, not only with our law enforcement partners, but also with the service providers from county and city entities. It is paramount that we all together in a rural community with resources that are limited, work together in making sure that we provide the best services to this community. I will say, as a jail commander, coming into the sheriff's office in 2016 and going over into the jail, we had a very arduous relationship with our public defender's office and some of the defense attorneys in our community. And it was based on very strict restrictions. We decided to limit the way in which public defenders and defense attorneys had access to the inmates and the clients. And it took a lot of work to listen to what they needed and to collaborate.
Time. So we're going to start with Bill on this question. What is your policy regarding undocumented immigrants who are victims of crime, witnesses of crime, or suspects of crime?
So SB 54 changed the way we do things in the state of California, sanctuary state. It used to be sanctuary cities, now we're a sanctuary state. So that has changed drastically how we deal with people that are in custody or with victims and witnesses of crime. It provides us the opportunity, without any type of repercussions for those individuals, to come forward and be a witness and be the victim that we need them to be, so we can prosecute and go after the individuals that are committing the crimes in our community. I support that because a lot of agencies that I know people that work in suffer because there's a lot of crimes that go unreported and a lot of victims out there that go unreported. And so it's important for those individuals to be able to come forward and have a voice to local law enforcement throughout the state of California.
So the SB 54, when it passed, clearly it changed the way in which lots of law enforcement had contacts in their communities. I think the nice thing about our community is that we are a rural community. We must have that communication with our community in order to investigate crime. The idea of even one person not being able to trust their law enforcement because they've been a victim of a crime. So the regulations and the policies that we've set forward at the sheriff's office, as an operations commander, we do a lot of policy review, is to assure that our officers understand that the policies and the change of the law to make sure that we are providing the best service to this community.
So Sanctuary Cities Trust Act, basically what it means is that there's new law, and we at the Sheriff's Department need to follow the law. We don't work with immigration. We don't do immigration enforcement. And that's the law, and we will follow the law. What's more important, though, I'll tell you what's more, thank you, but I'll tell you what's more important. Victims and witnesses, regardless of what their status is, need to feel that they can trust the sheriff's office, that they can come forward, and their status of immigration is not the reason that they're coming to us. They're coming to us because they're a victim of a crime or they need to report a crime. And so immigration status is not something that we're going to be looking at when we have these folks in our community that need the sheriff's help.
Okay, the next question is a relatively easy one because I believe all three of you have already answered it, but I got quite a number of questions about it. So, Nevada County is a shell issue county for carry concealed weapons permits. What is your position on issuing concealed carry permits? And I believe we start with Shannon.
Thank you. The CCW process in California is based off of the strict law within our legislative government and penal codes. Part of that process is not only shall we release and give permits to folks, but it's the sheriff's discretion is on cause. What is the cause that that person is looking for in that to possess a loaded concealed weapon in the public? As an operations captain, that's one of my duties. So we go through, right now we're in a software program to allow folks to sign up. I assure that their backgrounds are clear. I assure that their training records are in place based off of approved vendors, that we know what their outlines are for not only proficiency with handguns, but also the liability associated with when in fact, if anybody needs to use that weapon. My position is that that process does work, so we will continue that.
Time.
As police chief, I could issue concealed weapons permits. I did not. I allowed the sheriff to do that for me. But now that I'm sheriff, I will be issuing CCW permits, concealed weapons permits. And the current process, from what I can tell, is working very well, and I'll continue with the current process. Thank you.
So Shannon actually explained the process that we go through with the sheriff's office, but I'm going to tell you that I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. I believe a person has a right to defend themselves, their family, and their property in a safe and responsible manner. So as sheriff, I will continue issuing concealed weapons permits to those applicants who meet the guidelines or the law or the regulations set forth by the state of California and the guidelines set forth by the Nevada County Sheriff's Office. We vet those individuals, and those individuals in our community are vetted more than most individuals going in to purchase a handgun themselves. Over my 21 years with the Sheriff's Office and part of being a lieutenant, I also filled in for the captains, and I did the interview process with the individuals coming in with concealed weapons. Very engaging individuals that came in and reasons why they wanted to carry it. The good cause reason out is basically the way it's self-defense. It has changed because of case law. There's been departments sued over the years regarding those issues. So right now, our process is working, and I'm going to continue doing it.
And here is a question that dovetails pretty nicely on this. What is your position on allowing the sale of high-capacity magazines for guns like AR-15s? And first would be John.
High-capacity magazines are outlawed in the state of California.
So, as John said, California has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. So, right now, a lot of the issues that are going on with what we're seeing across the nation is the high-capacity magazine, bump stocks, different things like that that are altering a weapon, an object. So, one of the big things that people are concerned about are already against the law in the state of California.
I am going to say that, I guess, yes, California does have some of the strictest gun laws in our nation. The sale of high-capacity magazines, initially that came from an issue that happened in a school in, I believe it was in San Joaquin County. So listening to the community in California, we put the ban on the sale of those high-capacity magazines.
The biggest stack of questions. Can you guess what it is? No. So we'll do a segment on cannabis now. So let's start. And Bill, you first. The current sheriff has long stated that citizen-generated complaints regarding cannabis were the main reason for abatement procedures. According to this card, it has been proven to be less than truthful that 90% of the citizens' complaints were generated by deputies. Will you follow the current sheriff's, again on the card, mistakes by allowing deputies to continue this process, or will you rein in the deputies and reject the policies? I summarize.
So, as an investigative lieutenant, I was in charge of the marijuana abatement team. I was also a narcotics sergeant in this community for 4 years and a detective prior to that for 5.5 years in the narcotics task force. I have seen the large commercial type growth and the destruction that it's done to our community. But right now, in the state of California, under Prop 215, Prop 64, and our local regulations, it allows you to possess and cultivate marijuana. That doesn't mean that you can break the law. So all you need to do is follow the law, and within the guidelines of the supervisors that they have set. And right now, we're actually getting ready to get additional input to our ordinance, to see if the Board of Supervisors will accept that. But I believe that for everybody, not just the growers, but the people that are non-growers too, the quality of life for everybody on both sides needs to be addressed by the Sheriff's Office. And obviously, it has been put back on us, and the state of California has put those back on us to regulate.
I'm going to have a follow-up question for you, Bill, because you didn't actually answer the question about the citizen-generated complaints. Can you address that in 30 seconds, please?
Yes. And actually, that's what I started to deal with. As the lieutenant in charge of the abatement team, they were not originally, because in 2015 is when it came to fruition with the ordinance. So the complaints were complaint-driven. So those were individuals that were calling in. They could be anonymous, and they could call into the Sheriff's Office and complain about their neighbors. This past year, it went with the anonymous tips to people that would call in and give their name and location of where the grow was taking place. But if the officers were out, the deputies were out enforcing that ordinance, and they were here, and the adjacent piece of property had a grow, and they could see violations, they address those, just like you would want as citizens to address any law that's being broken in front of those officers.
Time.
As sheriffs, we need to recognize when the law changes. We need to make sure that when the laws change, our policies change. And in the Proposition 215, and definitely with Proposition 64, it changed the entire way in which marijuana and cannabis is enforced in California. The idea of making sure that our complaints are driven by citizens and not deputies. Hopefully with our new ordinance, what we will have is something that is clearly defined, clearly regulated, and clearly easily enforceable. So with the Board of Supervisors moving forward, they had another meeting today. I was not able to attend, but I have been speaking with a lot of the cannabis community in making sure that we do provide at the Sheriff's Office level the recognition that if something is not a crime, we don't broad brush folks that are committing crimes by continuing with enforcement.
I want the deputies to follow the law, and the law is changing. And what we need to allow is farmers that grow cannabis the ability to have the regulations in place to follow the law. Then guess what we can do? We can focus our energy on the cartel-type grows that are trespassing on people's land, that are polluting our rivers, that aren't even from our community and are scaring our neighbors. That's what we need to target. So we're hoping the Board of Supervisors comes up with regulations to allow people to do illegal grows in Nevada County and be successful.
Continuing on the same theme, now that the community is starting to come together to support commercial cannabis in the county, how will you begin to repair the relationship between the Sheriff's Department and the cannabis cultivating community?
So as I said, it's legal now. It's illegal to possess and to cultivate under 215-64 in our local ordinance. What we need to do is we need to come together as a community because it's here to stay. That's the issue. But like I said earlier, the quality of life for both the growers and for the non-growers in this community, we need to come together. So hopefully with this new set, because I think over the last 5 years, the ordinance has changed 5 different times. And it's very confusing for law enforcement, it's very confusing for the growers. So if we have set guidelines that don't keep changing, that we enforce and that the growers follow, I want to rebuild the relationship with them. A lot of people, as soon as my name went on the ballot, they immediately said that they're not going to vote for me because I ran the narcotics task force. So that's a false sense that you're putting in your mind because, like I said, it's legal under 215-64 and local ordinances. But it's not a free pass for people to break the law and continue breaking the law. So that's what we need to do, is we need to enforce those.
Part of any type of relationship takes time to connect. Connecting with the cannabis community It is our neighbors, they are our friends, they are our coworkers. I don't think you can broad brush and see one person and say that you're going to have a different relationship with that person. I think the biggest part of, and my answer for your question, Pascal, is how do you rebuild that relationship? You have to get out and listen to folks. You have to see the impact of what your policies have done on a community. Again, that as the laws shift, we need to change our policies. Part of what I enjoy doing is listening to folks that have been in our community for decades. This is not an emerging industry in Nevada County. I was born and raised here. Cannabis and marijuana has been here since the day I was born in this community. The reality of it is once we get people out of the darkness and into the light, we have to make that approachable for folks. So thank you.
So there's a distrust by members of the community in regards to law enforcement, period, throughout the nation. So how do you overcome that? It's you go out into the community, you meet with the community members, you meet with different groups, you embrace their ideas and you champion what the community expects out of you. What's your service that you're providing? So how you build that collaboration is you meet with the community. So one of the areas that I'm going to do as sheriff is I'm going to create a sheriff's advisory board made up of a cross-section of different folks in the community, different groups in the community, and we're going to meet on a regular basis, and we're going to share ideas, concerns, and frustrations. The area with the Cannabis Alliance is how we're going to build that relationship. Is I'm going to get the Cannabis Alliance to help me. You've got, I think, 400 to 600 members of good farmers that they're going to be my ambassadors out there saying, hey, there's a new sheriff for town, and this guy cares about us. So that's what I'm going to do.
And the last cannabis question, unless we get another stack. And I think so, Shannon, this one, you will start. Regarding cannabis business in Nevada County, will you work with the feds if they come to town?
If they come to town. So recognizing when our county supervisors create this ordinance for us, not only do we have the Proposition 64 of what I'm assuming since you guys are engaged here tonight, all of you voted in 2016 for Prop 64, for or against it, but that you did vote. Recognizing that the Board of Supervisors can also limit what we have for land use and zoning. The feds, when they come in, they have a very specific amount that they're looking at. If we have a cannabis regulation, if it's licensed and we're allowing people the safe access to their cannabis, if it's not licensed, it's illegal. We need to make sure that we do spend our resources and allocate our resources, not towards a civil abatement, but towards the actual criminal activity of cannabis that we know is still continuing and will continue in our community, because that's just what happens. So working with the feds in that is another resource for us when we're in a limited resource situation here in our community.
So you talk about relationships. Our Attorney General Sessions has allowed each of the Attorney Generals within their district to make the determination what they're going to do on this topic. McGregor Scott's our Attorney General. I know him. I've built a relationship with him. And if he wants to come in to Nevada County and help me with these cartel grows and help me eliminate the illegal bad hombres, I love it. If he wants to come in and address people that are following state law, we're going to have a problem. But I will take his resources because his resources will help eliminate what you folks want, bad hombres out of our county.
So again, 10 years of law enforcement experience spent in the Narcotics Task Force. There's been very few cases that we and myself, as a sergeant, ever had the federal government adopt from Nevada County. But those cases did not just involve marijuana cultivation. They were actually doing other things like structuring bank accounts. They were committing other crimes. So the IRS, the FBI, and DEA all got involved in those investigations. It wasn't like they were coming in here and cutting down every crime. As a sheriff, that relationship with those agencies is very important. They have helped us out, and they've done a tremendous job with us, and we have a great relationship with them. If they come into our county and they want to infringe on the rights of the people here, as long as they're doing it legally, then we're going to have a problem. And I will step up and I will say, time out, not in our county. But like I said, as long as you're doing it legally in the state of California, or in Nevada County, you're following the laws and you're abiding by the new regulations that are going to come down, there won't be any problems with federal government.
So this one, given that people with disabilities may have misunderstandings with law enforcement, for example, deaf individuals who cannot hear spoken commands, or someone with a traumatic brain injury who has difficulty moderating their behavior, please explain your past experience ensuring that officers have the resources and training to work and communicate effectively with individuals with disabilities, including those with physical, cognitive, and mental health disabilities. And if resources were not an issue, what would be your top strategy for addressing that?
So that's one thing that has changed a lot in law enforcement in my career in 24 plus years of dealing with individuals, because I do remember dealing with individuals in wheelchairs that were unable to hear, they were blind, there were several different issues that we had to deal with, and we had no training whatsoever. I think it's very valuable that we need to get additional training for our officers. Currently, right now, as an executive lieutenant in the Wayne Brown Correctional Facility, we're doing a lot of different modifications to the correctional facility, from our booking counter to showers, different things like that within the facility to make sure that we're ADA compliant. There are a lot more people that have impairments that are committing crimes too. But I think it's very valuable because we also sent all of our patrol officers, myself as a patrol lieutenant, our sergeants all went and we had training regarding dealing with the mental health too, mentally ill on the street, because that's where a lot of those issues come in, that people have been killed by law enforcement because they weren't able to de-escalate the situation prior to, or not knowing that that individual had mental health. So same thing with ADA.
So part of all of the training that we need for law enforcement is recognizing de-escalation techniques, recognizing that when a crisis happens, lots of times, lots of communication doesn't happen. So we have to recognize that some of the folks that we're dealing with in the community, it might not be that they are choosing not to speak to us, but they literally cannot speak to us because of a disability. So part of my plan and what I have done in the last several years, working definitely as a jail commander, but also as an operations commander, is making sure that I have been present with the mental health board, making sure that I have listened to the mental health practitioners in our community, listening to folks. We started a program, and I was part of the initial training process for our crisis intervention team that we put out for training for all of the staff. That was through collaboration, not only with our mental health board, but our behavioral health technicians and our program.
You know, law enforcement deals with people on their worst day. So think about somebody that has mental challenges as well. So what I did at Grass Valley, I'll do at the Sheriff's Office. Every officer was trained in crisis intervention training, which basically meant they understood the different symptoms of people to deal on the street. That'll happen at the Sheriff's Office. I'll also train the dispatchers so when they have the calls, they'll understand how they're dealing with it. I also brought in Freed. Freed provided training to my officers on different disabilities, on head trauma, which is a big issue. Now, she said, the blank check. What if you had a blank check? Well, I would create a mental health wing in the jail. Yeah. Many counties are doing that right now. 50% of the people currently in Wayne Brown have some kind of mental illness. We need to address that. It's a serious problem in Nevada County. I would expand the beds from the crisis intervention unit at the hospital, which gives law enforcement and families a place to put somebody that's in crisis. I would train the folks also to deal with mental illness on a sensitive fashion.
Time. And we stay kind of on the same topic. And John, you will answer this one first. Explain your understanding of the mental health continuum of care in Nevada County, and where does the Sheriff's Office fit into that? What are we doing right? What do we need to work on? And as sheriff, what would your focus be? And please, the questioner asked, please touch on more than just homelessness.
Well, the continuum of care and what we really need to do is we really need to focus on prevention out in the field. We need to have our deputies trained to actually address these issues, work with our mental illness resources, and get these people into help so they're not incarcerated, so they don't make bad choices. And so what we need to do with the continuum of care is recognize that we're the frontline people, and let's use our resources to really be trained to help these people, to get them in a place where they need to be treated instead of being incarcerated.
That's one thing, as a lieutenant in the jail, I'm currently working on the Stepping Up program to help with the mentally ill that are in facilities, trying to figure out why they're committing crimes, trying to get them help before they commit the crimes. Because one of the problems is, most of us, when we see somebody doing something on the street, you don't know if it's alcoholism, narcotic problems, or mentally ill issues. So when the officer gets there and they've committed those crimes, there's not a lot of resources that we have in Nevada County that we can get them, and so the officers are making an arrest. So when they make those arrests, they're bringing them to the Nevada County Sheriff's Office, and we are ultimately responsible for those individuals. And we assess them when they come in to booking, and if they don't meet the criteria because they need a higher level of care, or they need to be 5150 because they are a danger to themselves or others, they're taken to the crisis unit up at the hospital. But one of the problems is we don't have enough beds at the hospital. And then the hospital has the normal patients that are in there having to deal with them. So we need more help.
Continuum of care is about treating people in a continuum of where they are. And it's about agencies getting out of their silos and recognizing if one person has contact with law enforcement, they've probably had contact with behavioral health, they've probably had contact at our hospital. So that continuum of care is about assuring that we're all at least discussing the impact that this one particular person would have, and coming up with a plan for that person. A reach-around plan that can develop outcomes and progress and solutions for folks. The recognizing that mental health does weave in and out of substance abuse. It runs in and out of whether it's a mental illness, then you have your homelessness. Coordinated entry, I think, is the plan in moving forward with coordinated care, so that we do understand who in our community that these people are and what can we do to provide services. And instead of one person providing a service over here and one person providing a service over there, we all come together.
Let's switch a little bit to how you would run the department. And first question, what is your stance on the mandatory use of body cams on every deputy while on duty?
I have looked at body-worn camera policies for the last several months. It is my opinion that they are a need for the safety, not only our officers, but the safety of our community. I think body-worn cameras, and when I brought up the issuance of putting together a body-worn camera program now, the current sheriff has asked that we wait for the election, but recognizing body-worn cameras do provide better safety. If you look at agencies that have deployed them, all of the other agencies in our community are using body-worn cameras. When agencies start doing their statistics, not only do the number of complaints against officers go down, the number of use of force incidents also go down. And that's not because the officers are out there doing something wrong. What that does is, when the public sees that you have a camera on, it changes the contact. They've been surveyed, and citizens will tell you, once they knew they were on camera, it changed they were on their best behavior. That's going to be a great outcome for law enforcement. It's going to be a great outcome for the services that you expect us to provide in law enforcement, that you deserve from us in law enforcement. I think the cost will be something we'll have to look at. Thank you.
So I started campaigning last year, and one of the first things I told people, it's not if we're getting body-worn cameras, it's a matter of when I'm sheriff, you will have body-worn cameras. And people were asking me, because the sheriff at that time was saying he couldn't afford them, didn't want body-worn cameras, and people said, John, what is he hiding? Why does he want body-worn cameras? At Grass Valley, we implemented body-worn cameras, but what we did is we had the employees pick what they felt was the best tool. We have car stops where there's 5 cameras on a deputy making a car stop with their phones. So why aren't the deputies having the best tool for them to use? It's a tool, it's a resource, they need to have it, they will have it.
So as sheriff, I believe that the body-worn cameras are very important. Grass Valley, Nevada City, both of their agencies currently have them, but one of the things that you have to remember, we have a lot more personnel in our department than the 2 small agencies. So when you, the cameras themselves aren't very expensive to purchase, but one of the things that goes along with it is there's government code sections that require you to hold that video for a year and 1 day. Some of the other issues that are going along with it too is the litigations that are happening with the illegal search and seizure when an officer walks into your house because you're a victim of a violent crime or you're a suspect or whatever, and I'm inside your house searching everything, videotaping all of your kids and everything else that's going on inside the home. Because if you want the video cameras on, you're going to have them on all the time. Traffic stops, any type of contact that you have with a citizen, because it could result in a complaint. So it's very important that we stop and look at where we're going to get the funding first to be able to do that, because that video is going to have to be redacted because Public Record Act allowed that video to be released.
Continuing in the administration management, here's a question. The current staffing and administration at Wayne Brown Correctional Facility is at low levels. What is your plan to bring these staffing levels to a higher and safer level? Bill, you're up.
So that's one of my biggest things, excuse me, one of my biggest things that I want to do across the board, from dispatch, animal control officers, deputies on the street, and corrections. Currently working inside the facility, we're doing everything that we can. Myself, Captain Pettit, we both don uniforms, we help out with transportation, we do everything that we can because we are short-staffed within inside the facility. So it is very imperative that we hire and be very proactive with recruiting people. A lot of that, because morale issues go with lack of employees. The officers, the officer safety issues. You see sick time abuse. You see injuries on the job. So it's very imperative that we hire more and more officers as much as we can. We've been told in the past that we can't hire the positions that we have open, but what we need to do is we need to get back some of the positions that we lost over the year and to try to hire, not just 5, but try to hire 10. So that way we have those officers in place. When we do have those sick days, people go out on FMLA because their wife has a baby, different things like that. So we need to make sure that we continue hiring.
Hiring and filling positions across the board needs to be looked at and done better to provide you with the best services here at the Sheriff's Office. Keeping a vacancy rate is definitely a deliberate part of an unaligned budget. Recognizing you can't go to your Board of Supervisors and ask for more staffing if you're not even fully staffed. Part of a recruitment issue in our rural community is also making sure that we don't just lower our standards for folks that come into our Sheriff's Office. We want to keep a very high standard to making sure that the folks that are out there doing the jobs that we're requiring them to do at a public safety level are the right folks for our positions. One of the things that I have done as the correctional captain at the Sheriff's Office was actually created a physical standard, a physical test standard, to make sure that folks coming in the door were able to create a long-term position at our agency.
Recruitment and retention has always been a challenge for law enforcement. Currently, the deputies at the Sheriff's Office make $10 an hour more than those at Grass Valley Police. The Grass Valley Police doesn't want to go to the Sheriff's Office because what I created at Grass Valley was an environment that provided good resources, good mentorship, high ethical standards, and employees felt valued. Need to take that to the sheriff's office. The employees, the morale's bad. I mean, I'll say it. That's what I've been told. The morale's bad. The employees don't feel valued. And vacancies, yeah, they have a lot of vacancies. And so we need to address the vacancies, but we need to change the culture where the employees feel that they're valued, that they have the resources they need, that when dispatch is short-staffed, corrections is short-staffed, the deputies are short-staffed, that it's made a priority, and I don't sense that it is. And so I will take my skill set of embracing the organization to make it better for everybody.